Gourmet Gladiator. Chapter 34 to the rescue. With the strength that I had left, I placed my right and left hand on Helios's chest. From the palms of my hands I begin to form his chest, sending cracks through his chest. He places his hands over my and begins to cover my arms. But that wasn't going to do the work for him. He knew he was going to crumble. Ice hardening. I shout out as the ice on my arms molded and hardened on my skin, shooting up my arms, making them my new armor. The cold around me has become nothing to my skin, but my inside felt cold. Helios grabs my throat, but as a huge crack goes up his shoulder, he winces in pain. Immediately he grabs his shoulder and stands up. Helios shoots a blast of electricity at me. I raise my arm just in time to block the blast. Boom. Pieces of ice shards fly across the room. My arm wasn't harmed, and more importantly, I was able to stand up. Helios seals the cracks with the ice coming out of his left hand. You think you can use my powers against me? I'll show you what years of practice can do, Helios shouts out with a cocky grin. He placed both hands on the ground, and with a loud crack 2 rows of solid ice shot out across the floorboards at me. The ice around my arms covers my chest, exploding spikes out from the back and coiling around my abs. My legs were shaking, but that was okay. Roxy just gave me a goal. And now I'm going to complete that goal. The 2 ice rows crash into my hands as I try to keep them from completely shattering me. Helios looks at me and smiles as a huge axe of ice forms in his right hand. His power is being boosted to the next level. And with Kevin's and his power both combined and 1/2 of it already being boosted, I should be on par with him. But how can I surpass him? I need to wait for the drug to pass off the effect. I exhale as I push the rows of ice away, shattering them. I ran towards Helios. My fingers harden and sharpen. Helios swings his axe down at me. I raise my arm above my head and stand still as the blade shatters. Then as Helios steps back in shock, I swing my arms up towards Helios, sending pillars of ice into his chest, knocking him back into the wall. The building shook, but only Rock and I noticed. Keela blasted me in the side of the head with a bolt of electricity. Luckily for me, I saw it in the corner of my eye just in the nick of time to harden the left side of my face. Sure, it was burned, but I'm not dead for it. Helios shouts out in anger as he runs at me. Ice spears the size of my pillars from behind him and launches over him at me. I raise my hand and smile. I'm going to be the top chef, I shout out as my muscles thicken once again, creaking against themselves as I lower my body. Ice then completely covers my lower half. My skin creaks as it becomes like cobblestone grinding against itself. I thought it was funny to hear. And with my skin being rough and covered in ice, I was more confident. The ice spears crash beside me and a couple managed to shatter upon hitting me. But I stood my ground, not moving even an inch. Kevin runs up to me and strikes my face, only for his hand to shatter. I form a short sword out of ice in my right hand. I swing the blade at him. He winces in pain before stepping back to evade me. Helios strikes out at me, hitting my left shoulder, knocking me off of my feet but sending a huge crack up his right arm. Keela blasts me in the back with another bolt. But as things are being seen, I cannot be hurt and can now send back the damage. The short sword in my right hand grows bigger to the size of this room. I swing it with all my might at Helios. He smiles as Kevin runs to his side and raises his arms towards the blade. And as the blade contacts his arms, it shatters, giving me more ammo to do my actual attack. Ice explosion. I state as those sharps explode and become a nice thick snow blizzard. And for the surrounding ice, I place my hands on the ground and explode them so that the thick snow blizzard just becomes more dangerous. Snow lays heavily on the ground, already making up a foot of snow. Crunch. The sound came from my left. Must be Keela. I form 5 spears made of ice to my right, and with a flick of my wrist they fly towards the crunching of snow to my left. Is that you, Toby? Helios shouts, and as huge and loud stomps of crunching snow lead towards Keela, I smile. The roaring blizzard was just loud enough to ice the forming of ice spears. So I think I'm pretty safe. Plus Helios's little drug trip should be ending soon. For Randall, I'm going to bring this whole place down. And for that to happen, I need someone legal to bring down this whole group. I form an ice spear in my right hand and reel back my arm. Crack. My arm tightens as I take in a deep breath. Upon exhaling, I throw the spear up towards the roof. The spear pierces the roof and explodes, sending a huge beam of snow up into the sky. And with that snow I form the word help in the sky. If a chef or a police crew don't show up, I'll just have to wrap this up myself. Which is looking like it might be impossible. I haven't touched Helios in a bit, and it looks like this power is slowly dying. I only have a few minutes left with it. And from the sounds of things, my spears have missed and Helios has managed to steer Keeler clear of my attack. Not good. Guys, I'm over here, Kevin shouts out. I thought that was pretty dumb. Helios already collected the smart one, and with Kevin's arms shattered to pieces, I don't see him being a threat or a valuable asset. Of course I have Fiacla by my side, but the ice ain't going to melt anytime soon, and my huge form would only give me away. The super strength would come in use, but with Fiacla becoming blunt whenever it wants to, then it becomes a liability in a death match. Because a clear and concise cut from a blade is the difference between life and death. Damn it, I whisper angrily to myself. With the little time that I have left, I have to do something drastic. I put both hands on the ground. Once I cover the whole floor except for the route out of this place, I will be visible to the cold. I'll have to tail it out of here. Keeler has probably only been lasting because of the heat generated by her electricity, and with Rick having fire powers, he's pretty snuggly warm right now. And the hardening of skin is keeping both mine and Kevin's skin warm. But my insides felt like they were freezing before I touched Helios. I'm now more impressed by Kevin. But it doesn't matter. Ice spikes erupt from the floor and I turn and run towards the exit. As the blizzard begins to settle, I see the open front doors. And standing in front of them was no other than Helios and Keeler. You thought we were that dumb? Helios shouts out angrily. He forms a giant ice axe in both of his hands. He was ready to tear me into pieces. Keeler aims a shot at me as I see a tiny ball of lightning forming at the tip of her fingers. I keep running towards them, thickening my skin harder. Boom. A laser-like blast hits my shoulder, piercing my skin and going out the back of my shoulder. Then two axes shatter off of my back. I wince in pain as my back turns black and blue. I hold my shoulder and groan. But I manage to run past them and continue running blindly. Bam. I crash and tumble over a female. She had a nice white complexion and sparkling long red hair. She was Telissa. I jump up and she looks at me with a blushed smirk. Get out of the way, kid. I saw your message and decided to see what's come of it. Nice job, she states and walks towards the building that all four of my teammates used to wait for her. Other collections. About US. It is the world's first. The Gourmet Gladiator. Chapter 35, Top Chef Cruelty. The top chef Telissa was right in front of me, walking towards the hideout that I just turned against. Didn't seem too interested in me, meaning this would be the perfect time to run. But I want to see what she's going to do against what could be 4 power-enhanced crooks. I follow behind her, and upon her entering, a blast of electricity passes her head. She easily evades the bolt of lightning and sends a wave of gold-like ice substance towards where the attack came from. Why are they all taking power enhancers? Telissa asks me in a cold, stern tone. Yes, ma'am, I state cowardly before her. She's taken me down easily, and it looks like now she isn't even trying or afraid to fight those 4. Of course 2 of them are out of the race, but Helios and Keeler both make a pretty decent team. Telissa nods at me and then runs on top of the golden ice row she made. Helios smiles as he throws an ice spear at the top chef. Telissa just smiles at him before grabbing the ice spear out of the air and converting it to a bigger and golden ice spear. She hurls it back at Helios. Keeler blasts it out of the sky before it could reach Helios. With my powers receding, I'm out of this. Wait. I touched Telissa. I look at my body and my heart begins to hurt incredibly. My guts feel like a gold razor blade is cutting him up. Tears form as I moan in pain on the floor. This was her power. It hurts to possess. What kind of pain is she going through? I manage to grab my guts and stand up. I nearly collapsed but managed to lean against the wall. I turn my head to see around the corner of the door. Helios keeps trying to fight Telesa from a distance with ice spears, but being a top chef she easily evades and manages to throw a couple of gold spears at Keela. The more impressive bit is how Keela explodes Telesa's attack. I'm going to boost Telesa's power and use just one attack. As Telesa's power got stronger within me, my heart and guts felt as if they were crystallizing. I scream out in pain as golden spikes erupt from my arms. I slam my fist on the ground, sending a wave of gold towards all of them. Telesa was in the crossfire, but a giant pillar of golden ice rose to where she got out of the way. But the golden wave wasn't cold. It was blazing hot and boiling as it rushed towards Helios and Keela. The very ground was scorched and the snow and ice began to melt and become part of the golden wave. Telesa's pillar cracks and crumbles. She begins to fall and scream in shock. Maybe I can be the top chef right here. She looks at the wave and in a sequence of beautiful and clever movements she twists herself right up, and as the wave barely passes her she raises two golden ice pillars to catch her fall. She aims her hand at the wave in front of her and instantly it stops before reaching Helios. The wave crashes on the floor on the spot it halted at. Helios looks over at both of us and looks at me with fear in his eyes. Telesa takes out a little syringe full of a green neon fluid. I am the top chef Telesa, and I am here to arrest the Icebreaker Gang for multiple issues dealing with murder of Randall, Toby's parents, and many other lesser and yet still outstanding crimes. You are to willingly come in and accept the cure. Otherwise I'll have to cure you by force and then send you to a harsher prison. Telesa states firmly as if just read it out of a book. Helios forms a wall of ice front of him and crashes through the wall. Keela stands behind the wall and launches a blitz of bolts at Telesa. I slam my left fist down and more cold spikes erupt out of my skin as the puddle of gold rises and absorbs the shots of electricity. Telesa looks over at me. Kid, I'm going to talk to you after this is done. But I do not need your help. I know you don't, but I can't just not let you do all the hard work. With the amount of pain you struggle with every day, I say with a smile as one of my eyes closes from the pain. My body struggles to move and the golden spikes erupting from my body are piercing my skin and clamping my body from even inching towards another. She looks at me with a shocked expression as she turns her head towards Keela, who was already beginning to charge up another volley of attacks. Helios got away. But those two behind me are dying by the second. I have to heal them before dealing with that woman. Do you think you can send her running, Toby? She asks me as she jumps towards Kevin and Rick. Both of them were lying on the ground wounded. I'll do my best, I state weakly. A few more blasts launch out of the ice wall and I slam my head against the floor, raising the gold puddle once again to block the shots. Keela looks at me and aims a blast at me. Golden spikes erupt once more out of my skin. I shout out in pain before sending the standing wall of liquid gold towards Keela. She, instead of shooting me, runs out of the hole that Helios made. Making her escape, Telesa was able to drag Kevin and Rick beside me. Good job, kid, she says with a smile as she raises her thumb at me. I smile back. I would like to go to the Culinary Coliseum. I want to become stronger, I state outward towards Telesa. She looks down at me with her smile now turning into a frown. Once you wake up, I'll turn in the paperwork with a personal recommendation. But only because the men you killed were saved just in the nick of time by a true chef with revival powers. Too bad Randall missed the time period in which the chef could revive him, she states, and her words become more muffled by the second. My eyes closed and that was the end of the pain. The Gourmet Gladiator. Chapter 36, Hospital Rest. When my eyes open, I throw up my arm in front of them to protect them from the bright light that shines above me. After my eyes adjust, I look around and spot Telesa sitting next to me. She raises her head and looks at me. Her hair was messy and her eyes were droopy. Good morning, kid, she states as she stretches out her arms. So I'm here to arrest you and make the final report. But thankfully, because you were turning on the gang and with the other gang members reporting that you were being controlled by Helios with the threat of killing a really important person to you, I have met with a few people and they allowed you to give you a personal pass on this one. But there is the fact that you did attempt to murder those of rival gangs. Thankfully for you, Dr. Sue was able to resurrect and heal the wounded rival gang members. Before arresting and stripping them of their powers, of course. Telesa looks at me and smiles. And here comes the good part. You asked me about being a part of the Culinary Coliseum. And I'm glad to tell you that you easily got in with my recommendation. But you have two choices. Either you let me strip you of your power. I was filled with excitement, but those words scared me beyond. What if I go back to being fat and useless? My body quivers at the thought. What else is there that I can do? I asked desperately. I thought you would ask. But the Culinary Coliseum only allows students to enter. And even though you're a brilliant kid that's getting good grades on online school, that doesn't necessarily allow you to go ahead right in. Most students compete to go into the Coliseum to get stronger and become professional chefs that go on to fight crime. But you young man ain't going to be competing because I personally recommended you. So what I ask is one simple thing. I want you to break every bone you have to improve your powers before heading into the Coliseum. Even if it's by an inch of progress. You have 1 week to do it before you head off to the Coliseum. Her words and her face were the same expression, serious. My heart begins to pound furiously as many thoughts race around my head. I accept, I say hesitantly. Telesa smiles as she bursts up out of her chair and extends her hand. Don't disappoint me. I'll train you and then send you off to the Coliseum. She shouts out at me and grabs my hand before vigorously shaking it. Can't wait to break you. And suddenly my heart was thumping more intensely. I was about to experience pure hell from Telesa. The top chef was about to break me and train me how to better use my power. Yes, ma'am, I shout out more of fear than excitement.
Chapter 34 through 36, The Gourmet Gladiator. Please like, subscribe, and check this out on Inkit. Have a good day. Bye.